Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. Welcome to my YouTube channel where we talk everything New York Jets. I'm also the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. It's game week. New York Jets, Carolina Panthers, week one. It's been 8 long months, but finally we're here, and every week we're going to be doing this where we talk to an expert that for the team that the New York Jets are playing. And this week we have a very special guest. His name is John Ellis. He's the host of The Roar on Blue Wire Pods, also iHeartRadio college football host. John, thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, Paul, good to see you, man, and looking forward to talking a little Jets Panthers with you, man.
Well, this game is chock full of storylines. I mean, we could be talking about this all day, but let's address the elephant in the room, and of course, that is Sam Darnold. And at one time, Jet fans obviously thought that Sam Darnold was their own savior until, well, he wasn't, and they traded him this April ahead of the draft. So, from the Carolina perspective, when Sam was originally traded to the Panthers, what was the initial reaction from the fan base?
I mean, it was mixed. Obviously, Sam sort of mirrors his career. He's had mixed results himself, coming in as a top three pick, and there were high expectations. I think Panthers fans have warmed up after seeing some of his training camp performance. He had a really good game in the preseason closer there against Pittsburgh. Lots to be determined with Sam. Obviously, he's got more weapons to work with now. The offensive line is still very much a question mark, especially now that former Jet and Panthers right guard John Miller has been ruled out for this game because of COVID protocols. So, I mean, it's all about protection. If they can give Sam time and give him time to throw and these receivers can get open, got a chance to put together a really good season. But it's more questions than answers right now with Sam.
Well, let's ask about that because a lot of Jet fans are curious because they were kind of watching the Panthers from afar this preseason, and they thought the way that Matt Rule played, or perhaps didn't play, Sam Darnold throughout the preseason was interesting. Can you give us any insight on that strategy?
Sure, I think a lot of that anxiety is warranted because you want to see Sam in real game action. And I mentioned that during my training camp coverage. But one thing they had the advantage of is two joint practices. They had a joint practice in Indianapolis for the Colts. Sam did not play in that game, and then they had another joint session with the Ravens, and Sam did not play in that game. So it was he played one series, he threw one pass, and then he was out. So I think Sam got some really good reps in those joint practices, especially against the Ravens, a very good test defensively, as you know. I think some of those concerns are warranted, but I think he got enough good reps in those practices to give him a feel for what this offense is.
All right, let's fast forward a bunch of weeks from that point when the Panthers traded for Sam Darnold. They had an opportunity in the draft. Justin Fields was right there. Mac Jones was right there. They coulda, they woulda, they shoulda. They didn't. They said, oh, no, thank you. And they passed on those options. Again, I'm curious the perspective after the draft, and then shortly thereafter, as we know, the fifth-year option was exercised. So it seems like a lot of belief from that Panthers organization in Sam Darnold.
Oh, they believe in Sam. Trust me, I've talked to one source from the team there throughout the process who said they were high on Sam during the draft a couple of years ago. Obviously, it's a new regime with Matt Rule, but still, the scouting department, a lot of the same guys are there. And I think the staff collectively had a feeling that if Sam was available at a price they were amenable to, they would stick with that. And it was disappointing for a lot of fans. Look, when Justin Fields was on the board. I mean, it was a dream scenario for a lot of Panthers fans. This is a guy that looks and feels like Cam Newton in a lot of ways, sporting the number one, obviously in Chicago. But I think Justin's got some time to grow too. They're not going to start him right away. Look, it's the time will tell. It's going to be a fascinating story to follow over the next couple of years, as you know, to see if not only Zach Wilson with the Jets, but how this quarterback class takes shape. But particularly for Carolina, they took J.C. Horn, a very good corner from South Carolina. Will that be a better pick ultimately than Justin Fields, who looks dynamic early on? Will not start right away, but I think Matt Nagy's sort of, easing him into the mix there. It's going to be a fascinating story to watch over the next couple of years, no doubt.
There's no question about it. And like I said, this game is chock full of storylines. One more on Darnold here. Again, we're speaking with John Ellis, the host of The Roar on Blue Wire Pods here on the show. How has the perspective changed? So you said there was a lot of mixed reactions, and that's understandable because, again, Sam Darnold battled both pros and cons. He had high moments and low moments during his career with the Jets. So initially it was mixed when they got him. What about now? We're days away from the season opener and some of those pops both in training camp and the preseason. How are Panthers fans feeling now about Sam Darnold heading into week one?
Depends who you ask. I think there's more anxiety than comfort right now. Look, Carolina has been on a quarterback conundrum carousel here for a few years now since Cam Newton's health declined a little bit with his shoulder. Kyle Allen looked good at first, but I think we all knew Kyle wasn't the long-term answer. Teddy Bridgewater, look, a lot of fans were hopeful that Teddy could come in and be the long-term answer, but I don't think that was ever meant to be, and he was out the door after 1 year. And now Sam Darnold, again, I think we talked to Greg Cosell, one of our good friends from NFL Matchup, about Sam. He's done a lot of film study on Darnold. I think the thing with Sam is his footwork. They spent a lot of time this year focusing in the offseason on Sam's footwork. It's been questionable. As a Jets guy, you've seen some of the ghost comment thing. It doesn't bother me as much. It's just the fundamentals in the pocket. He's got to get better and more sound in terms of when he has a clean pocket. Can he sit tight, set his feet, align his feet with his eyes, and make that throw? That's one thing Cosell had mentioned that he struggles with at times. He's got all the roll toes you look for. I mean, he's a physical, big quarterback and can sustain some hits. I think the jury's still out, though. A lot of fans around here are very nervous about this season. But it's like Matt Rule had said, it's going to take time to rebuild this program, and this is one more step in that process.
All right, let's talk about some of the key matchups that could decide this game, and you mentioned it there. Sam Darnold having a clean pocket to operate from would be a huge benefit to seeing what else he's able to do. You mentioned it at the top. It was right from the Matt Rule presser earlier today. John Brown is out for this game because of the COVID protocols, and Dennis Daly will be making his jump to there. Give us the state of the state on the offensive line for the Carolina Panthers.
Well, it's concerning. Paul, here's the thing about the offensive line. They signed Cameron Irving and Pat Elflein on day one of free agency, and not for insignificant money either. And I think as a Jets guy, you saw Elflein up close last year. He was not very good in pass protection. He does not look good so far in terms of the preseason action. Again, we'll give it some time here. But they drafted a young guy named Deontay Brown who looked very good at camp, very good in preseason, a natural right guard. He's not getting the start right away. It's going to be Dennis Daly, who spent significant time here over the last couple of years playing a rotation of offensive line positions. I'd say if you're a Jets fan, where you have hope here is on the interior part of the offensive line. Cam Irving has settled in a little bit at left tackle. I think he's going to be okay. Now, is he going to be great? No, he's not. That's why he was available. But I think that left guard position, the center position with Matt Paradis, and now right guard with John Miller out, who I thought was one of the more underrated players on this team. That gives you, if you're a Jets fan, it gives you hope. If you're a Panthers fan, if you're Sam Darnold, it gives you a little reason to be concerned.
All right, let's go the other way. Let's give the Panthers fans some hope here, and that's when they look at that Jets cornerback group. I mean, it makes me wake up in the middle of the night like, oh, my God, is that really what we're having? That's what we're trying out there week one? But apparently that is the case. So when I look at the Panthers receivers, I'm like, oh, boy, mismatch nightmare. It seems like the Panthers are overwhelming with wide receiver talent. Is Matt Rule and his coaching staff licking their chops the same way that I'm fearful of waking up in the middle of the night?
Well, I think the staff is always respectful. They're always going to be publicly respectful. I think privately they got to be thinking, okay, we've got some matchup nightmares here if you're the Jets. I mean, you look at the Jets have a very questionable secondary, as you know. They have problems there at corner. That's where Carolina, if that line can hold up, that's the thing. If the line can hold up with some pressure that Robert Salah will dial up, Robbie Anderson, the former Jet, DJ Moore, one of the better underrated deep ball receivers in the league, and also a great open field guy. And then the emergence of Terrace Marshall, the rookie from LSU, who is, a 6'2" plus, 200-pound plus physical receiver, can create nightmares because he can play all over the field, Paul. He can play the slot, can play the boundary X. I think that gives the Jets some reason for concern. But again, unless they can protect up front, and I have question marks about that this game, they'll be playing small ball again like they were with Teddy Bridgewater, just dinking and dunking. And I think that's what Robert Salah wants, to just put enough pressure on Sam Darnold and this offense to prevent the big play.
It sounds like the Panthers doing with what the kids like to call a first world problem there at wide receiver. How are they going to – because there's only one football. Again, I didn't tell you math would be a part of this, but one football. You got Robbie Anderson. You got DJ Moore. You got the young kid from LSU. Like, how are all these pieces working? And really, that Robbie Anderson guy, he sounds familiar. Tell us about him. The Panthers take a chance on him. Matt Rule obviously has that connection, formerly of Temple. And wow, they rewarded him this offseason with another extension. It looked like that paid off.
Yeah, it really did, Paul. I mean, Zach, the thing with Robbie Anderson is he came in. there were a lot of question marks about, was this another Matt Rule guy? And people have had that sort of mentality here. It's just Temple Baylor guys. I like Robbie going back to the Jets. He played a game in 2017 against the Panthers. I believe that was his rookie season, where he was just dominant. I mean, that was Josh McCown up there just heaving up dimes. It was the Jets lost that game, but it wasn't Robbie Anderson's fault. I think he went for $150 in that game, caught a couple touchdowns. He's a heck of a player and a great deep threat, but he also shows versatility to make plays over the middle. So I love the fact that if you're Carolina, you re-sign him, you lock him up. DJ Moore can do a lot of things in terms of inside the stripes there, inside the numbers, but also he's a great contested catcher down the field. They'll take their shots. Again, the protection holds up. And then you got Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury, probably the best route runner on the team, to be honest. He's going to be split wide quite a bit, I think, in this game to present some matchups. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Again, how the heck have we gotten this far into the interview? And Christian McCaffrey, let's throw him in there. Right? I don't know what's happening here. So Christian McCaffrey, tell us about him. Obviously, he missed the majority of last season with injury. It's really the first time in his career that he's missed practice time, let alone game action last year as well. How is he recovered? How is he looking heading into week 1? Is he healthy?
He is. I mean, the recovery's been, from a outside perspective, a little bit slow because they're easing him along. They're not playing him much in the preseason at all, not at all, actually. And then at camp, the reps were limited. And I think that's smart because, it's an injury you can't afford to re-aggravate. He looks good. He's got the burst in camp when he was active, when he did get some reps. I don't think you have anything to worry about with McCaffrey. And I think it's one of those things where, he's been a rock, a workhorse in college. He's obviously one of the most physically gifted players in the league. Injuries happen at that position, but I just think it was one of those fluke things that happened, and it sort of piles up on you in terms of emotions sometimes when you're a player. It gets in your head. I think McCaffrey's different. He comes from an NFL background. His dad was a great player of the Broncos, and he knows better. So I think he's recovered. He's healed himself. The team was wise to shut him down. I think he learned some lessons from Cam Newton. Shut him down early. Let's get recovered and move on. I think he's ready to rock.
And let me ask you this, only a few more here with John as we're previewing this Jets-Panthers game here. I can only assume, again, as a Jets guy from the outside looking in, that Panthers fans last year were saying, Christian who? Some guy named Mike Davis all of a sudden was running buck wild out there, and he looked fantastic. I ask you, now that he's now in Atlanta in the same division, was it a system thing that, Matt Rule can plug any guy in and have success? Or was it a Mike Davis thing? And also, is there a Robin to the Christian McCaffrey's Batman? If he deals with any other issues or they play him in slowly, is there someone else who can step in and have a Mike Davis-like impact?
Well, to your first point, I think that was very much a Mike Davis is doing last year. I mean, the system is good. Joe Brady runs a fantastic scheme here, and Matt Rule loves to run the rock. But Mike Davis was outstanding when he filled in. A good receiver out of the backfield, too. Now he's down in Atlanta. That'll be interesting to see how they deploy him. They did sign Royce Freeman recently, the former Denver Broncos back who had some success there a couple years ago. I think Royce Freeman, Chuba Hubbard, the rookie from Oklahoma State, will probably sort of battle back and forth for that running back 2 position. Hubbard's very good. I like his production at Oklahoma State. He needs to work on his rhythm and timing a little bit as a runner here. It's something we saw on tape here in the preseason. But that's going to happen with a rookie. It's not easy to come in and learn the system right away. So I think he'll eventually be the running back 2 in this system. But I think week 1, it's hard to tell. You might see Hubbard in there. You might see Royce Freeman get some carries. But I wouldn't be surprised if McCaffrey played 98% of the snaps. They love to work him like a horse that he is. So we'll have to see.
Something else that scares me is the Jets' offensive line against the Panthers' defense. While it is markedly improved for Jet fans, that's not saying much because it's been terrible the last couple of years, quite frankly. So, when I look at some of those guys like Brian Burns, they brought in Hassan Reddick outside there, Derek Brown in the middle. Again, that's one of those places where I'm like, boy, the battle in the trenches could very well decide this game.
Oh, absolutely. No, you look at Paul, the strength of this team, I think, is in their front line. They have a good rotation of guys now, which a while back, if you look at what Carolina came from, where they came from, they had some big question marks. They went through sort of a transformational season in 2019 where they tried to shift their scheme. They signed some older veterans. Gerald McCoy was on the roster at one point who, did look very good. But again, he had some injury issues after that. They've gotten younger. They've gotten faster. Hassan Reddick was a bargain signing. Again, that's another Matt Rule guy. And I think Brian Burns coming into his own here in the third season is really going to have a feast, I think, this season. Maybe not week one. I mean, look, Mekhi Becton, I've got a lot of respect for his game. I think he's a very good player out there on the edge. But Burns, Derek Brown, you've got a rookie in Davian Nixon, who's a very capable three-technique, gap-shooting type of defensive tackle. Daquan Jones, they signed from Tennessee. You mentioned Reddick, of course. They do have some other pieces like Marcus Haynes, who can be situational rushers. And they're not afraid to put a guy like Shaq Thompson on the edge and rush him as well. So I think they're going to try to apply pressure. Hopefully, if you're Phil Snow and the defensive coordinator for the Panthers, Phil Snow, who's done a good job of mixing up the scheme here, and he did some good things against Aaron Rodgers last season. If they can get home with 4, make Zach Wilson uncomfortable and get him off his spot without having to bring extra pressure from the back end, I think that's something to look for. But another guy to look out for is Jeremy Chin. I'm sure you'll get to the safety for the Carolina Panthers, second-year guy. They're using a lot of blitz packages with safeties in the preseason. Wouldn't be surprised to see Chin off the edge.
Let me ask you, what kind of game do you expect here? Is this a low-scoring game? Could this be a high-scoring game? And also, which would the Panthers prefer?
You just never know this early in the season, Paul. I would love to say it's going to be a shootout. I think on paper it has that feel because Carolina is still growing on defense. I like what they have on the back end. They've got J.C. Horn now. They've got Dante Jackson. A.J. Bouye, who's supposed to be the slot guy, is out for this game because he's got a 2-game suspension he's serving. That's a bit of a hit. I think that's a tough loss for them early in the season, but he'll be back. I just think it's if you're the kind of team that the Jets are, what they want to do is slow this game down a little bit. It's a rookie quarterback who's got a great skill set. I love Zach Wilson's tools, but they want to get that running game going early. They want to grind the clock a little bit, play a little bit of that extended ball that they know how to play in San Francisco, see what they can do in terms of milking the clock and shortening the game. Otherwise, I think Carolina could have a field day with that defense if they protect up front, and that's a big if.
All right, John, let's put you up against it. Prediction time. What do you foresee happening? Grab out the crystal ball. Give us the prediction. Give us a final score. What do you see on this one as we record on a Monday?
Now, this is subject to change, folks. Of course, we got some time left. Injuries, COVID, anything can pop up here.
That's true.
Right now, I'm going to go Panthers 31, Jets 20. I think it'll be competitive for a while. I do think that Robert Saleh will scheme some things up early defensively to keep the Jets competitive. I just think they have too many holes in their roster right now stacked up against Carolina. I would not be surprised if this was an upset, though. I just wouldn't. I mean, it's early in the season. These things happen. The Panthers still have a lot of question marks, again, on the interior part of their offensive line at left tackle. They have a brand new corner in J.C. Horn. This will be his first start. So we'll have to see how these young guys perform. But it's all about Sam Darnold, really. I mean, this is the storyline. Can Sam, get it done in the pocket, set his feet, stay poised, avoid the ghosts, and play some good football? And I know that's what Matt Rule's looking for. I'll go 31-20 Panthers.
Again, this is going to be a good one. To me, I thought when I saw this on the calendar that just they were playing each other, and then the Darnold trip happened. I'm like, I could see this as part of a doubleheader on Monday Night Football to kick off the year. Yeah. The fact that this is a treat at 1 o'clock, I mean, fans enjoy this one. This one's going to be a goodie. John, you're the best in the business. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Paul. Thank you so much, man.